Hi, I'm Annette, the Stop Skin Picking Coach, and today I'm going to do a Q&A for you. So I recently asked my email newsletter list what they wanted to know, what they wanted me to address on YouTube, and I got some questions, so I'm going to break it into a couple Q&As. Today we're going to talk about more the picking side, and next time, maybe in a few weeks or so, we'll talk about skincare and what what you can do about scars, things like that. Okay, so the questions for today, we're going to talk about how to get back on track after a relapse, and we're going to talk about the factor of enjoying the picking. Is there a way to change that? I'm Annette Pasternak, the Stop Skin Picking Coach, and let's get started. So I'm going to read for you the first question. What's the best way to get back on track after a relapse? Once I'm on a good streak, I can sustain for a while, but I find if I slip up, it's hard to resume the good streak again and wind up having several bad days in a row. Yes, well, this is unfortunately really common. It's easier to keep going once you're going. Your mind's kind of in the groove of not picking, and once you pick it, it gets increasingly hard to not do it. But I have several suggestions for you. So the first is that you really want to be fully aware of all the things that helped you in the first place and implement those. So just make sure you're, if keeping track of your picking helps, it usually does, get back to doing that if you've fallen off with it. Make sure you're taking proper self-care. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough exercise? Are you eating well? Keeping your sugar intake low, caffeine sometimes, alcohol, that kind of thing. That can all be helpful. And another thing that's really important is to saturate your mind with kind of the positives. I know it can be discouraging if you have a relapse. And so you really want to fill your mind with encouraging things and information about getting back on track. So several clients have told me that my book has been very helpful in that way. Is like if they have a relapse, then they just go back to the book and read, and it's very hopeful and encouraging. So that's my book, it's called Skin Picking, The Freedom to Finally Stop. So that's on Amazon, iBooks, anywhere online. And there's also an audio version. So I've got that, by the way, in the notes under every video. There are links to those. So, things like that, watching videos, just kind of getting your mind back in the game. Because when you're not picking, it's like so great, you forget about it, right? For the large part, but just getting your mind back. So I hope that's been helpful. A few tips for you there. Just really like getting back to what works, what's worked for you in the past, and staying encouraged and keeping track of it. Okay, so it's when we stop keeping track that we stop holding ourselves accountable, and things can let go and get kind of spiral out of control from there. Okay, so that was the first question for today. The second question is, sometimes I still enjoy picking, ? What can I do about that? Thank you. So this is another one that's like, unfortunately, the case for a lot of us. It's like, it's enjoyable, right? So I have a few things to say about that. The first is to make sure that your life is as enjoyable as possible. You want to make sure that you're not denying yourself fun and other ways, healthier ways to enjoy yourself. And the second thing you can do, what I do with my clients, there's something called NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. And in that field, there's something that we call the like to dislike exercise. It works surprisingly well. The idea is that we look at, our brain kind of processes things that we like differently from things that we don't like, things that we dislike. And what we can do is break down like your enjoyment of the picking into these different, what's called submodalities, and then map them onto something, onto submodalities of something that you dislike. So this was taught to me in the course that I took as far as food. So taking a food that you like into a food that you dislike. And at the time, I was really hooked on cheese doodles. I just couldn't get enough of those things, those puffed cheese, and I get like the healthier versions, but still I knew it was not good. So that's what I did the exercise for. I changed the like of cheese doodles into dislike. And this exercise, it's amazing. It takes about 5 minutes. And from then on, after that, every time I'd even think about a cheese doodle, like I'd think about bringing it maybe this close to my mouth, and I'd feel kind of a repulsion, like I could not eat the cheese doodle or even think about it. And that lasted for about 6 months. And I've never had a cheese doodle problem again after that. So people do that a lot with sugar, with like sodas, things like that. And so you're mapping something you like onto something you dislike. And, quite frequently we'll take the picking. I ask you to visualize it. I ask you questions like about your picture in your mind. Is it black and white or in color? Is it near or far? Because those are the kind of things that we conceive of differently. So perhaps, the thing you like, you see up close. The thing you dislike, you see far away. And so we map that. And, often, now, of course, that's never the only thing involved in picking, but often it really helps and it really changes, loosens up that enjoyment factor isn't there anymore. So that's a nice thing. Now, what can you do aside from that if you can't find an NLP practitioner, or if you don't want to do coaching with me, for example? What can you do then? Now, this enjoyment thing, you can also, another thing, you can talk to a psychiatrist about that, because there are, this is an addictive thing, this enjoyment. There are brain chemicals like dopamine that are involved here. And so so there's a drug called naltrexone. I think it's like a dopamine blocker or something like that. I didn't look this up so I'm just going from my memory, which isn't that great. But that's one thing that can sometimes be helpful, it seems like, for skin picking type behavioral addiction. So, it might be a question that you want to ask your psychiatrist as well. And if you found this helpful, please give it a thumbs up. I want to continue doing Q&As, so please send me your questions. You can contact me through my website, stopskinpickingcoach.com. Also, feel free to just write your question in the comments if you don't mind being not so anonymous. I'd love to hear from you. I'd like to continue doing YouTube Q&As maybe once a month. So please do that. Subscribe if you want to be notified of the next Q&A and all the other good stuff I post weekly.